The Republican presidential nominee claimed that rival Kamala Harris had been disrespectful to Israel. And Netanyahu said he hopes Harris's comments about civilian casualties in Gaza won't harm ceasefire negotiations. Later in the day, Trump targeted Harris before a crowd of conservative Christian activists. He claimed, amongst other things, that she doesn't like Israel. CNN's Kristen Holmes has more from West Palm Beach, Florida.
Former President Donald Trump, speaking to a crowd of conservative Christians, went in to his attacks on Kamala Harris. A very different Donald Trump than we have seen in the last couple of days, trying to hone in on his messaging when it comes to Harris. We had seen him trying out various lines, but this speech had more direct attacks, not just on her record as vice president, but also as her record as a senator, as her record in California. Now, of course, it was still a Donald Trump speech, so it went here, there. There was a lot of riffing. However, it was clear that they are trying to complete this mission of defining Kamala Harris in this race.
She was a bum 3 weeks ago. She was a bum, a failed vice president in a failed administration with millions of people crossing, and she was the border czar. Now they're trying to say she never was the border czar. She had nothing to do with the border. She was the border czar. We have a new candidate to defeat the most incompetent, unpopular, and far-left vice president in American history. That's what she is, the most incompetent, but certainly the most far-left. They were explaining to me, you can say Kamala, you can say Kamala. I said, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter what I say. I couldn't care less if I mispronounce it or not. I couldn't care less. Some people think I mispronounce it on purpose, but actually I've heard it said about 7 different ways.
Now, one other notable moment tonight came as he was talking about abortion. Again, this was a Christian conservative group. As he started talking about exceptions when it came to abortion in terms of mother's health, incest, and rape, there was a section of the room that began booing what he was saying. Now, Donald Trump himself didn't react to the booing, but he did start talking about the fact that you have to believe, you have to follow what your heart believes, but that you also have to win elections, something we have heard him say before. Kristen Holmes, CNN, West Palm Beach, Florida.
Kamala Harris has been looking to prove herself to the public in the early days of her presidential campaign, and now she scored her biggest endorsement yet from former President Barack Obama and his wife, Michelle.
I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness. Michelle, Barack, this means so much to me.
Well, the Vice President thanked the Obamas for their support and expressed gratitude for their long friendship as well. Now, according to fresh polls, Kamala Harris is erasing Donald Trump's lead in the presidential race. A Fox News poll shows a statistical dead heat in the 3 battleground states of Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin, and Harris leads Trump by 6 percentage points in Minnesota. A new poll from the Wall Street Journal indicates there's no clear leader nationwide. Among registered voters, Trump is polling at 49%, with the vice president at 47%, an improvement from Biden's numbers. In their last poll from early July, Mr. Biden trailed Trump by 6 percentage points. The margin of error just over 3% there. I'm joined now by Leslie Vinjamori. She's director of the US and Americas program at Chatham House. I mean, if we look at Trump's speech last night, getting a sense of his plan of attack with Kamala, it seems this idea that she's a far left candidate and incompetent.
Exactly. But this is Trump and J.D. Vance, that ticket was, as we know, chosen before they realized that Kamala would be the lead presidential candidate on the Democratic side. And so we're seeing them rapidly adjust and needing to adjust with sort of a series of blunders, not least by Vance. But it does seem like it will be, the memory of that assassination attack, really very short time ago, when we all thought that there might be a moment of a transformed discourse, a unity led by President Trump, just simply hasn't come to pass. And we reverted very rapidly back into, attacks on the other candidates, trying to frame Harris as being incompetent, making fun of her. But, on the part of J.D. Vance, taking some swipes at women, which are, not smart. And it will be very interesting to see how Donald Trump reacts to that. But this is, very short time. It hasn't even been a full week. The fact that the gap has closed between Harris and Trump, that she is polling, if you look at one poll of 18 to 34-year-olds, it was 60% Harris and 40% Trump. So clearly she is going for young voters. She is, setting out a slightly different position on Palestine and Israel, and really pushing hard on reproductive rights and women. So I think those will be some of the things that she will forefront in her campaign.
You're a very respected academic. We're wondering if you can figure out what Trump meant here from this soundbite last night.
You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
Over to you.
Well, I mean, look, everybody on Twitter has been playing that and replaying that. Democrats, academics, saying this is what he wants to do. He wants to shut down democracy. What is the phrase? One vote, one man, one time. But I think Donald Trump is well known for playing to his audience. He sort of is willing to forget the fact that the world is also watching his words. He was speaking to Christians. It certainly sounds like a president that is a presidential candidate that is determined to shut down the democratic process. But it could mean, he speaks in code. It could mean I'm going to solve all the problems and shut down debate on the issues that you care about, and therefore voting will be less consequential. We all know that the contrast between these two candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, is vast on domestic issues, on a number of foreign policy issues. And so the stakes are high, the contrast is high, and both candidates are going to be really using this message to drive passion and enthusiasm amongst their voters. Donald Trump is willing to even use language that suggests that he's willing to subvert the democratic process and put an end to it. But, maybe he's saying something different. Maybe he was speaking to older voters. It is obviously very disturbing in light of the events of January 6th, his role in that. But again, he's speaking to his base. These are not voters that are going to switch who they're voting for because they're afraid of any risk to democracy. It's just about enthusing them, injecting passion, and ensuring that they get out and vote. And to a certain extent, amongst base voters, we'll see that on both sides of that. I don't think you're going to see Kamala Harris willing to say that she'd shut down a presidential election process in the United States.
No. I mean, one thing she has been pulled up on is her comments after meeting Benjamin Netanyahu. It was seen as a departure, at least in tone, from Biden's policy. And, Netanyahu and Trump, when they were together, were pretty pointed about that, weren't they? I mean, what did you make of what she said and the different approach she may take to the Middle East?
She's certainly taking a different approach. She made it very clear. She recognized on multiple points the suffering of Palestinians, the images that are being seen. She also recognized the profound distress to families and the community of having hostages held by Hamas. But she is a presidential candidate, soon to be with that nomination, that is not going to portray this as a one-sided conflict and is really pushing hard on the need for a ceasefire to get the hostages home and to end the suffering of Palestinians. And remember, she was sent just before October 7th on a tour of university campuses, again, intended to really inspire young voters. We know that young voters have a different perspective on Israel and Palestine, that there's been a lot of division over this war, even amongst those who support a state of Israel. They don't support the policies of Netanyahu. A lot of Netanyahu's people don't support his policies. So she really is moving to a position that is reflective of many people in the United States and around the world, that's still a shift and an important one in the context of U.S. Elected officials. And she will get, and we've seen this, she will get heat from that in the political classes. But again, when it comes to voters, I think that she's tapping into some very important sentiments and feelings, especially amongst young voters and those Arab American voters in Michigan that we talk about. So there are a lot of constituencies. She's really, Kamala Harris, trying to expand the base of voters who feel committed to and passionate and feel like their policies, their values are represented, and their age and their diversity are represented in the Democratic Party.